customers coming in feel secure and confident and safe, and that they think we are taking this seriously. And that's our main objective today, is to make sure that we've got processes in place where people walk into a leisure centre and they go, blimey, this lot are looking after us, I'm happy to come back. So I'm going to hand over to Ian, who's going to talk through risk assessments. Ian, are you there?
Well, I am. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Just a quick reminder, as I've said at the beginning of every session, going back to the original aims, this is to gain the confidence of the customers, confidence of your staff, and also enable you to sleep properly at night, because just remember that COVID-19 outbreaks linked to the workplace are reportable to the HSE and will bring you under scrutiny. Hopefully, though, by getting your risk assessments right and by learning from the other industries that have already reopened, that we're going to be able to do that and do it in a way that provides that confidence, enables you to look anybody in the face and say, our buildings are clean, come and use us. To do that, we think you need to start by walking the building. Compare your experiences with the likes of Waitrose, Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Lidl. What are they doing good and what are they doing bad? I know that Marks and Spencer's, or at least some of the stores, and it's not generic to all, some of the stores evidence the fact they're wiping down baskets before the concierge on the door is handing it to people. If you need to go to that level, that's a great place to be in to give that initial confidence. You do need to consider how you left the building before you left it. Was it clean? Was it clean enough? If you've had nobody in the building, there'll be very limited risk of COVID. There'll be no risk of it being left within the building if you've not been in it. But how will it appear to customers? And do you want to make sure you increase that step so that it sets a new standard for your own cleaning staff to live up to and make sure that they adhere to? And this is as much about touch points as it is about floors, although floors does give you that overall feeling of cleanliness when you walk in. What equipment are you going to need? Who's going to do it? Is it going to be additional cleaning materials, or are you going to use good old soap and water, detergent and hot water to scrub everything down? You need to take the advice, get the advice from your suppliers as to how you're going to achieve that. Think through all the touch points. Make sure you highlight them of what you're going to do prior to reopening. But just remember, that's only as good as the first customer coming in. You might want to consider how you do it, whether you are doing area by area or everything at once. And don't forget the offices, changing rooms, plant rooms, etc. Places where people go and touch stuff. Consider also where, when you do open, so this is prior to reopening, where you're going to place hand sanitizing equipment so that you can encourage staff and customers to use them more often, and how you're going to sign that. You've got to also consider what service level contracts you've got, not only with your cleaning contractor, but with also sanitary removal companies and nappy bins, and how you're going to control those and have them ready and open for reopening. And you've got to consider the human resources you've got and your PPE procurement. We'll touch on PPE later, but all the advice that seems to be in government websites at the moment is it should exist with your current chemicals that you're using. And unless it's having to be cleaning that can't be socially distanced, or someone's got an underlying health condition, there is no need to enhance that PPE over and above what you should normally be doing. Next slide, please. Next slide. Can we have the next slide, guys?
Yeah, I've done it, Ian. Have you got it?
No. I don't know whether anyone else has. Yeah, I have now. Right, okay. More than ever before, it's imperative that we do use this as an opportunity to make sure, as Caroline hinted at the beginning, that we do really have effective cleaning regimes. We all know how difficult it is with the limited resources that you've all got to do that, but like nothing before, we need to demonstrate that we are keeping our buildings clean if we're going to be able to get the confidence of our customers. So you need to think about that concierge offering hand sanitizing on coming in, daily cleaning, deep cleaning regimes throughout the time when this R factor is still high, and we need to maintain control. Consider your emergency cleaning procedures. I'm sure you've got those, deep cleaning and bodily fluids, but also if you have a known outbreak, you can refer, and we've got the link on the bottom, to the government advice on cleaning non-clinical settings where you've had a member of staff who perhaps has then displayed symptoms of COVID, or a member has come in that has had COVID or develops it after being in. You will want to carry out some further cleaning. There is clear advice as to how that should be done, including double bagging any materials that you collect afterwards and storing those for 72 hours before putting them in the bin, so that you're then not affecting anybody else further down the chain with the risk of catching the virus from that. Think about making sure your inspection and monitoring regimes are good. And I know Christian is going to mention a few good tips on how that can be done more easily and effectively than probably you're doing at the moment. Stock replenishment. Hand dryers or paper towels. Is it education to encourage people to wash their hands thoroughly and properly and then use the hand dryer? Or is there going to be a risk with hand dryers of people not washing their hands properly, 20 seconds with soap, and then spraying virus around the changing room or the toilet area that they're in? Something you need to think about, and something you need to really consider, certainly ingrain in your staff this thing of hand washing. Re-educate people and call each other out if we're not doing it. It's got to be something that becomes the norm, not the extraordinary. Cleaning frequencies. You've got to consider how much you're going to do that. Is it going to be done overnight, deep cleaning, or are you going to maybe section areas of the building off so that people can see that you're carrying out deeper cleaning? We've already touched on sanitary bins and nappy bins. And your resources. Obviously, that's going to be a major effect on you. And you also got to consider the signage you're using. We clearly don't want to obliterate every level and surface with signage telling people, but we do need to remind customers and staff of the need for good hygiene practices, as I've already talked about. Next slide, please. God, this is taking time.
Bit of a delayed reaction.
Yeah. Is that because we got so many on today? So. Are we there? It's not up yet. It's not on mine. I can start talking about it and hope that it comes up any second. This is the looking at the who, where, what and when of the new cleaning regime that you might decide to adopt. Who's going to do that cleaning? Are you going to need extra people in? Perhaps if you're not opening all facilities all at once, you're going to be diverting other people, so there's a more visual display of people out there. How are you going to bring staff back? Staff that perhaps a cafe or creche that are still on furlough, might they be able to add additional resources to help you do that? We know of one chief exec that's deciding to bring all his more experienced staff back initially so that they can be the ones demonstrating the standards that they want to get to in terms of cleaning and keeping those presentations up. Who's going to clean? Who and how? We've already talked that through. You need to think through, and how are you going to make sure you're training that competence into your staff? You've got to build that into your risk assessments to show you that you're thinking through those things. Again, talking about stock levels, need to make sure you've got clear cut-offs so that you order in time and that you don't end up running out and being short for a few days. What gets cleaned? This notion that one or two governing bodies have come up with that is to make sure we clean the people as well as the touch points. So if somebody is on a climbing wall, the equipment they touch, the important point is to make sure they clean their hands or sanitize them before going on it, and they sanitize it as soon as they come off, is as important as anything else. But remember also those other points around the feet of lockers, around the feet of cubicles and seats, and also inside the lockers. People are going to judge you on it. Cleaning, where will it take place? We talked about some of that. And when. It's the frequencies, timings, whether it's going to be done in-house or in operating hours and people can see you doing it, or whether you're going to have some programs that are done outside so you can maybe get more thorough cleaning undertaken. Next slide, please. You need to start about 2 minutes before I finish each slide so that it flips over.
Give me the heads up, Ian, and I'll do it.
Okay. again, the how, why and why. You've got to think through how you're going to maintain these new standards, whether you need new equipment or additional equipment. Are you going to expect your cleaners to be using the same bits of equipment? Have you got a cleaning regime in between each of those using that bit of equipment to make sure they're not putting each other in risk? Cleaning of poolside equipment. Simple advice that's coming out from Swim England and from other bodies is that so long as your water is chlorinated sufficiently, then poolside equipment can be dunked into the pool and left there for a few minutes to allow it to be cleansed before coming out for future use. The promotion of clean customers. The thing I just said about climbing walls, about encouraging them to wash and cleanse their hands regularly. Consider using zone cards so that you can record cleaning and inspections undertaking. And again, Christian will mention some of those points. And think through why we're doing it. Make sure people realise that we're trying to remove other dirt and debris that might harbour COVID and might give the impression that you're not cleaning the buildings adequately and losing customer confidence. Okay, next slide. Well, that one was quicker. So, we've touched on many of these points already. You need to think about the equipment you're using. Do you need any more? How are you going to use mops and buckets? The use of colour-coded mops and buckets to make sure you're giving a clear differentiation between areas so you're not passing bacteria or viruses, in this case, between one area to the other. Clearly, if you're bringing in new chemicals, you need to review your cost assessments. Hand sanitizers and wipes need to be as a minimum 60% alcohol, and consider where you're going to put those hand sanitizing stations. And PPE, again, in line with the chemicals you're using, and unless there are exceptional circumstances or you're reacting to someone who has had symptoms develop, the advice that we're seeing points towards no need for anything enhanced over and above what you are currently using. But that's something you need to include in your risk assessments and refer to the government advice that is coming out. And most importantly, and before probably I hand over, is that to seek the advice and support of your suppliers. And then the last slide, please, before I hand over to Christian, is all about staff competence. It's an opportunity to set this new normal, to use this opportunity to make sure staff realise that just wiping a surface to make it look clean, all they might be doing is just spreading the bacteria around of old days. It's even more important now that we're not doing that, because we need to be killing this virus. Soap, water, detergents and other viral methods, and being able to prove that you are making that effective is how we're going to move forward and help us stay open and keep the confidence of our customers and of our staff. You need to check your work instructions. Make sure safe use of chemicals on the different surfaces. I know Christian will come on to that. We don't want to put heavy scouring stuff on clear surfaces, so we're damaging them and making them more susceptible. And we need to involve the staff. We need to brief them and provide the confidence in the new arrangements. And I can't reinforce enough the need for our staff to be leading by example, to show the need to wash their hands thoroughly in soap and water for 20 seconds minimum. And again, seeking support from external people to support the training that you're going to need to reinforce those needs to keep the profile up. And anything you can do to promote the staff champions and ambassadors leading this will clearly help. And the more you can maybe use the website to profile what you're doing to enhance your cleaning regimes is going to help you in the long run. I'm sorry that was so fast. We've got a lot to get through, and I'll now hand over to Christian so he can take you through the other bits before we come on to the questions, which I can see are whistling through on the chat. Thanks.
Hi guys, thanks for inviting me. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Christian Harris from Slip Safety Services. I'm going to just whiz through a few slides because I can see there's a hell of a lot of questions coming in, but I'll try and cover some headline stuff and perhaps delve into a little bit more detail here and there, but we'll see where the conversation takes us. So as Ian said, and I think everybody kind of realises, hence why there are 169 people on today's webinar, we've got a kind of new reality now around cleanliness and hygiene. This chap, Blaine, who's quite prominent over in the States, he said that people are now cleaning as if their business's life depended on it, because it does. And I think, he's onto something really, because when members come back through the door, if they see, that it's clean and it's inviting, they're going to think, okay, this company cares about me and has obviously invested time to try and get this right to keep me safe. If, however, they walk back through the door and it's not, they're probably going to think, what have these guys been doing for the last 3 months? And I'm not really sure about this, and perhaps they're not going to come back. So I think, it is really fundamental now that we get this right. For those that don't know me, I've been working in this field for over a decade. We're a service business, so we don't make or sell any particular products. So therefore, any advice that I give you on those things is totally unbiased and agnostic. We have done historically a lot of work in wet areas and floors, so this kind of thing here, improving hygiene levels, safety and standards. So this is kind of our expertise. So a couple of insights to share with you. The first one is that if you want to disinfect or indeed sanitize a surface, it needs to be clean. So you can't go around spraying sanitizer everywhere or wiping things down with the sanitizer and expect that has been effective from the perspective of killing off any germs or bacteria. Now this probably isn't relevant right now because obviously centres have been closed, and the virus, if there was any anyway, it would have been long gone by now. But going forward, this is something that you need to bear in mind. You've got to keep surfaces clean in order to keep them hygienic. And secondly, this is going to give you this framework here that I've developed called ROTAS. Is going to give you a roadmap, I suppose, for how you need to do effective cleaning. So all of your clubs, all of your centres, all of your parks historically have all been cleaned. But my experience in the sector is that, certainly in barefoot and wet areas like changing rooms, showers, poolsides, etc., the outcome of that cleaning hasn't been particularly effective in the past. These are the 5 things you need to get right to get your right results. So regularity, we've got to be cleaning frequently enough. And, we've learned through this whole crisis that frequency of cleaning of touch points is really important to stop the spread of viruses and bacteria. Organisation, you need to know what the outcome is you're seeking to achieve, and you need to have somebody that's owning it and managing it and driving it forward. Time. So cleaning tasks do need a certain amount of time. There's no point saying, I'm going to clean the changing village that's 1,000 square meters and I'm going to do that in 15 minutes. It's just impossible to do that to any standard that's effective. Ability, so we're thinking about training our staff and motivating our staff so that they know how important this is, and they've been shown what to do, and they've been explained to them how important, how critical their role is in terms of keeping your facility safe. And the system, so the process, are we equipping these trained and motivated staff with the right products, the right equipment and stuff like that? Because, you can be as motivated as you like and as well trained as you like. But again, if you've got a mop cleaning a changing village floor, you're not going to be that effective. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's definitely ways of getting good outcomes here. We've seen some great results from the perspective of, improving NPS, driving revenue, and reducing accidents, which are all correlated to cleanliness. So there are ways of doing this in a sustained fashion. So from your perspective, I think 4 key questions are, if you want to try and get your club up to standard, which I'm sure you do if you're watching this, how do I do it? How do I know if what I'm doing is actually working? How long do I need to do it? When should I start? So we'll walk through those. waiting for the screen to update. So in terms of how to do it, the process pretty simply is, you need to do a thorough clean first if you want to be hygienically clean. So there's two sides to this, as we've said. There's being able to stand with your hand on your heart and know that, and be able to say that, you've done this thoroughly and everything's hygienically clean. And there's the perception part, and you've got to weigh up which way you want to go on this in terms of, do you want to do it as thoroughly as you would in a hospital, or do you want to do it better but try and give the customers more confidence? So it's a deep clean. It's potentially thinking about disinfection, and that might not be now for reopening, but going forward you might want to think about doing some sort of disinfection on a periodic basis as well as sanitisation. And then it's about a maintenance and a monitoring regime. There's no point getting it up to scratch if you then just let it go and deteriorate again. Basic kit, this is the real basics that you need. So you need some cloths, and I'd recommend using some microfiber cloths and colour code them because you don't want to be doing cross-contamination. Mops and buckets, spray bottles, chemicals, some sort of cleaning machinery for floors primarily, and some sort of extraction. Wet vacuum is going to be useful for all sorts of floors, and also for when you're cleaning walls, for example, and then liquid is coming down onto the floor. So that's your basic toolkit. Things to consider: PPE. Now I put this image in not because that's the PPE you need, far from it, but the point being, don't go into overkill. Get proper advice on that. Thinking about protection and not damaging of surfaces. So if you've got, for example, a trampoline park, a chemical that is going to be useful in your kitchen to clean the floor is not going to be the same chemical you're going to want to use on your trampoline because you're going to damage it. And then really think carefully and make sure that people understand about contact time. So all of these products, whether it's Dettol you buy in a supermarket or anything you buy for commercial use, are going to say we kill 99.99% of this, that, and the other thing. But actually, if you start reading the small print, it says based on a 6-minute contact time or a 2-minute contact time or whatever it might be. If you think about going to a cafe, going to a Starbucks or a Costa or something like that, and you see them cleaning the tabletops, what are they doing? They're spraying and wiping straight off. That's actually not effective cleaning. So people might perceive that as cleaning. They are removing some contamination, but they're certainly not leaving a hygienic surface behind. And there are 3 ways that you can check if your process is working, because as we say, you've got to get the cleaning bit right to know that you've got something hygienic. So there's a qualitative element to this, a subjective element. So how does the surface look? How does it feel? So for example, if you're walking over a carpet, like in a pub, and the carpet's all sticky, that suggests it's not very clean. And smell. Smell is quite visceral, so smell is probably the first thing actually that members might notice when they come back in. You can measure hygiene levels, so there are some different tests there that you can use. The one that I think is quite exciting and interesting is a product called Fresh Check, and this is basically a little spray bottle, and if you spray it onto any surface, it's got a liquid in it, and if the surface is dirty, it will change colour on a scale. And if the surface is clean, it won't change colour. So if you think about taking it to your home and your chopping board, if you plonk down some chicken, for example, and chopped it all up and then put that into the pan, and you sprayed this onto the chopping board after that, it would change colour because there's bacteria on the surface. If you then cleaned that off and disinfected it, and sprayed it on again, it wouldn't change colour. So this could be useful both to signpost to you whether your cleaning regime is actually working or not, but also potentially from a member perspective, you could actually be showing members that surfaces really are clean, because I think people now understand that this is a hidden threat, this cleanliness and hygiene thing. So that could be of use. And if you are interested in learning more about that, let me know, and I can get you a bit of a discount on it. And then when it comes to floors, another way of maybe measuring is slip resistance as well, because a floor could look clean aesthetically but be slippery, and therefore you have got contamination within it, and therefore it's not going to be hygienic. So what I suggest you do is figure out where you are, benchmark yourself on those 2 or 3 points, try out a process. If it ticks the boxes, crack on. If it doesn't, you need to try a different process, and you need to do an iterative process here to figure out what's actually going to work. It's very easy to, do the traditional leisure centre deep clean. Right, we're all going to get some takeaway pizzas, and 10 of us are going to stay late and blitz the poolside. But actually, is there enough thought going into that historically in terms of the efficacy of that approach? I don't think there has been. So these are some ways you can actually quantify and measure whether it's working or not. In terms of how long you need, it's probably a lot longer than you think. So again, going back to the old way would be, a few people spend a bit longer. I think to do this properly, and when I say properly, what I'm saying is do a proper deep clean, and then potentially to do, as I say, some sort of disinfection or sanitizing as well, if you want to go down that route. You're looking at quite a significant investment in terms of people and hours to do this properly. We've got on our website a calculator. So if you were to visit there and put in, the size of your changing rooms and the size of your gym floor and the size of your studios and so on and so forth, we can send you a list by area of how many hours you might need to be doing this properly. So that could be of use. And I think, given all of that, you probably should be starting sooner than later. If you want to delve in a bit more detail on this, I'm doing my own webinar every Wednesday at 3, and we go into this in a lot more depth. Obviously here, just conscious of time, so that could be of use to anybody if they want to go into a bit more detail. And then essentially there's 4 ways that we can potentially help you if of use. We're doing a lot of educational content such as this and the webinar. We can, as I say, from a agnostic way, because we don't make or sell any products, we can actually, if you send us loads of information about your centre, we can come up with a plan for you to say, right, use this product here, use this piece of equipment there, this is how many hours you're going to need, and so on and so forth. For a few £100s, we could do that. Or if you are interested in doing this kind of professionally, we could come in and help you with that as well.
Thank you very much, Christian. There's some really good practical tips in there. We're not going to dawdle now. We're going to pretty much go straight on to questions because there's an awful lot on the chat. We've also had some questions about cleaning and hygiene prior to this clinic in our other clinics, so we're going to touch on those first. Just wanted to say I've got 2 teenagers at home. One is an athlete who's been trained over the last year to look after himself and has carried sanitizer with him for the last year, and takes his health very, very, very seriously. I've got a 16-year-old who's an absolute slob, who washed his hands for a while, and now he has to be reminded, and decides not to wash his hands, so you have to slap sanitizer on him before he goes out, and he's working in a butcher's shop, which is quite hilarious, really. I think it's important that we realise that there's an awful lot of people out there that they're going to start getting bored with this. They're going to get bored with having to wash their hands and take 20 seconds and make sure they do their thumbs and all the rest of it as well. So we're going to have to raise the bar in our standards to make sure, in our centres and buildings, to make sure that those people coming in are doing what they need to do. So it's just a bit of a, that's what happens in my house. Right, we're going to go straight over to questions now, and Jill's going to let us know the first question.